Mills Village Board for August 11th to order, please. Roll call.
President Byrne. Trustees Cook.
Here.
Oppenheim. Here. Takaoka.
Here.
Schultz.
Here.
Markworth.
Here.
Mr. Clerk, at this point in time, I'd like to nominate Trustee Cook to be President Pro Tem for the remainder of this meeting.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
President Byrne. Trustees Oppenheim.
Aye.
Takaoka.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Markworth.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a quorum and the meeting has started, so would everyone please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, first item is citizens wishing to address the board. Do we have any? Go ahead. If you could state your name and address.
Chris Meyer, 371 Cherry Valley Road. I have several small items.
Okay.
But first, which I was going to bring up at the meeting I thought was last week, but it's been taken care of, and I thank you for restriping Oakwood and 45. Several people have almost gotten hit there. At the same intersection, there's a big yellow sign with arrows that show the road ends. The branches are covering the sign and need to be trimmed. I know 45 is a state highway, but if there's anything the village can do, I'd appreciate it. And also, I believe the light, the street light at that intersection is out. If you could take a look.
I will take a look at it for you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next item, 2 months ago, excuse me, 2 months ago, a lady was coming off Westmoreland, too fast, turned on Cherry Valley, took out the stop light, or the street light and speed limit sign on next door to my property at 371 Cherry Valley. It's been 2 months. It's dark. The light hasn't been replaced. The speed limit hasn't been replaced. If you could check.
What's the location on that one?
371 Cherry Valley Road. Actually, it would be in front of 373 Cherry Valley Road.
373 Cherry Valley.
Yeah.
At the corner of Cherry Valley and Westmoreland, basically, right?
About half a block,
About
yeah.
half a block, okay.
Yeah. Thankfully, she hit well, not thankfully, but she hit the street light instead of our car. At that same intersection, I don't know how to explain it, but you come off Westmoreland onto Cherry Valley, it's almost like a camelback, and people come flying around there, people coming up to the intersection to the stop sign, many, many times, myself included, have almost been hit. I really think with the increase in traffic since years ago Camden was cut through, that it really, I think, would meet the criteria for a three-way stop. I don't know how that works.
What's the intersection again?
It's it used to be South Cherry Valley and Westmoreland.
Cherry Valley, yeah,
Right, right by my house.
and Westmoreland.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, where Westmoreland makes the curve.
Yeah, Westmoreland, you come off a curve, hate these things. You come off the curve, but when you go on to Cherry Valley, it's almost like a camelback.
Sure, I know that.
And they come flying around there. And of course, no offense, but the police are never around to catch them when they're speeding. I have no problems with that.
And real quick, as far as a three-way stop, I'll informally look at the warrants myself. You have to have warrants to put a traffic signal.
Correct.
You know that?
Correct.
Or stop signs also.
Right.
But this one may not meet it, but we'll look at the numbers for you.
I mean, the traffic on Cherry Valley and Westmoreland has increased so much.
Is there certain times you see this more than others?
Mostly rush hour,
Okay.
morning, evening, sometimes the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah, there's a lot of traffic that comes out of Hawthorn Club and other areas that,
Going to
To get
83 and
83.
45, right.
I
Are you
live
guil-
in Hawthorn Club and.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about,
that's
Jim.
how I get to 83.
Are you
Right.
guilty of this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, on Deer Path at Lexington, there's a dead tree. My daughter's an arborist, and she said it looks like it's diseased. I'm afraid one of these days it's going to come down on somebody or somebody's car.
Is it in somebody's backyard?
No, it's on the Parkway.
Oh, okay.
And I've been noticing it, and I thought I'd bring it up. I just thought maybe,
Deer Path
you
and
know,
what?
Deer Path in Lexington. Okay, and then the last thing, of course, is what I've been here about before, the fence with Abbott. Has anybody heard anything from Abbott, from Long Grove? I mean, the posts are rotten, it's falling down, and I don't think I should have to pay $1,750 to replace it. It's not my fence.
Yeah, as the board is aware, the fence is located in Long Grove. Long Grove has an employee from Buffalo Grove that works as their code enforcement officer, so we were initially working through them. But right now, Long Grove's position is that they're not required to have a fence, and that, in their opinion, it doesn't constitute a violation. They don't intend on following up on it.
But isn't it a violation if the fence is already there and they don't maintain it?
From Long Grove's perspective, it's their position that they don't intend on following up on it and don't think it is a violation. For the village, and what's unfortunate is that it's outside of our jurisdictional boundaries, so if we could control this, we would take a different approach. But right now, we're at the mercy of what Long Grove's position is regarding the matter. And they seem to have a different approach to code enforcement than Vernon Hills does. It's something that they don't prioritize as
Right.
much as our community does.
Right.
And we've been unable to get cooperation from them.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah,
I've been calling too.
yeah. And I'm a little, I'm not sure at this point what else we can do if they're not going to consider it a violation.
Have we reached out to
Any,
Abbott?
yeah, have you reached out to Abbott?
We could. We could do that. I know there's a contact, we do have a contact through Public Works Director Brown's office. We could reach out to them and see if they're just willing to do it as a good neighbor, and we'd be happy to do that. Sure, absolutely.
Because I have two dogs, and we've already put up temporary, we went out and bought some fencing, portable fencing, and put it up, and there's parts that have already rusted through. I don't feel that I should have to do that.
Understood.
I mean, the posts, they're the wooden timber posts, and they're leaning into my shed, and, well, Mr. Marquardt,
I-
trustee Marquardt knows about it.
I know that there are some T-posts that are in the ground. There are some wooden posts in the ground. I did look at it, and I'll probably I'll fix it for you. So, personally. And again, when all this started coming,
I understand.
so it's been sort of a little
Right.
hectic timeframe. But I'll make sure you're taken care of.
Well, plus they have an obligation to cut all the weeds. That was an obligation when they put in the berm. This year, all the farmer did was cut the top. He didn't come down the berm. It is steep, way too steep in my opinion. But, you know, there's nothing but weeds and thistles and snakes, which I found several in my garden. And it's
We can discuss
unsightly.
that. We could discuss that with Abbott, the weeds part. Sure, absolutely.
Thank you very much. That's
I'll
that's
make
all
sure
I
to
have.
take care of I'll take care of your fence for you.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment. concerning your comments. So about the weeds, when you bring up the weeds, we have this issue with Lowe's too, Mike. I know, I get complaints about these, that area by Milwaukee not getting cut. I think we're way too lenient on these guys, and you know what? We need to do something to be a little more aggressive with these companies that don't cut the weeds. Even Icon, when they weren't cutting weeds next to open lots, I know you're inundated with a lot of this stuff, but I get texts all the time, and I think we have to start taking more of a stronger stand on this, especially with these commercial guys. They can get someone there to cut this stuff down because it looks like crap.
Yeah, thank you, and we'll do so, Trustee Takioka. What we did this year as an attempt to be more proactive was early in the year we sent out letters to all the vacant property owners within Gregg's Landing, including the shops at Gregg's Landing, and we told them this would be their final notice. State statute requires that we send a notice to the last known taxpayer and give them a certain number of days before, and if they don't cut it, then we would have the authority to go on the property and cut it. So we sent one notice and said, that's it. And certain properties within the shops at Gregg's Landing, the ones immediately south of Gregg's Parkway, and then a couple properties in Riviera Estates have not been responsive, and we have been cutting it, billing them, and then when they don't pay the bill, we lien the property, and that's been our protocol this year. For vacant parcels, the code allows grass or weeds or growth to be as high as 18 inches. Whereas if you're a developed parcel, it's 6 inches. And when we're answering questions on this line, I think that sometimes is the disconnect. So we can, one of the things we can do maybe is I would ask the board for direction on this. Do we want to look at our ordinance for the maximum height of tall grass or weeds on vacant lots, and do we want it to be less than 18 inches, thereby giving us the authority to follow up on it quicker, or is the board satisfied with 18 inches on vacant lots? And I'll sit back and wait for the board's direction.
We should go to 6. I think, and that may even be, is that unrealistic? 18 inches looks like, it doesn't look good. And, this is a community that, I think prides itself on aesthetics, right? Heck, we had an argument over the height of a fence. And now, I'd rather look at height of weeds, quite honestly, because I get many complaints.
The biggest issue that I would have is the carriages of Grosse Pointe, they let that go natural for pollinators and things of that nature. At what point do we say that this has to be cut, but that doesn't have to be cut?
Yeah, what's a weed?
Yeah, what's a weed versus a natural grass?
Yeah.
We just had a situation, which is Park District.
Right.
And someone complained about it, and it's cut, and now the individual that goes by every day says you've cut all the wildflowers. So
Yeah, right,
Someone
but
can't-
then 2 weeks earlier, someone said, why isn't that mess being cut down?
I get what you're saying, but look, if I'm in a residential area, it's common sense to me. I have a custom home being built. I have a lot open here, 6 inches maximum. No, I don't think there's any argument I would get
I
with
would
that.
suggest that if it's in a
especially residential
setback
areas.
zone, if it's in a setback area from a roadway, maybe the 6-inch makes some sense there. But I don't want to arbitrarily say,
Okay, again, we can differentiate and
Yeah.
stratify how we do this. Milwaukee Avenue in front of, Gregg's Parkway, absolutely 6 inches, because I don't want to look at 18
No,
inches. People walk there all the time.
right, if it's a commercial property and it's, within a setback area, that probably should
The
be.
carriage is a little different, okay? That's an open field. That, to me, is like wetlands type of,
Yeah, but one
I get what you're saying, but I don't think anyone's complaining over there
Well,
about the height
why
of the
don't we
weeds.
have Mike go back and take a look at the ordinance and come up with some?
Right,
Yeah, let's
and
just,
Some
also
potential.
other communities.
Yeah, do we have any idea where the 18-inch number came from? Is that a standard in the area?
1828.
it's a common. No, it's a common. It's a common in a lot of areas.
We can, Trustee Oppenheim, we can do a survey of neighboring communities to see what their maximum length is. on vacant properties, share that information with you. That'll help us understand what, what other communities are doing in the area. And what I'm hearing are comments that, at least those portions on lots within so many feet of a public right-of-way, because they're so, you could see them so easily. So, we'll start by doing a survey of neighboring communities, see how they're handling it, and then we'll take a look at we'll make an attempt at some language that if we have vacant commercial properties that are visible and within so many feet of a public right-of-way, within those parameters, then you'd have to keep it at 6 inches. We could throw together some draft language, put it in front of the board, see how you react to it, and just kind of go from there. Does that sound okay?
Yes, sir. Very good.
Okay, now Julie.
Julie Simpson, 307 on Wencher Road, Vernon Hills. So I just wanted to make you guys aware, in case you weren't, and the public who watched the last meeting who may have been expecting a presentation from Public Works today, that we still are exploring some further options. Any presentations will definitely be willing to present, and dialogue is always open. And just as a side note, I just want to read something that's from our board rules as kind of an explanation for something. It says, board members should avoid commenting or taking a position on land use related issues or matters of potentially involving litigation that come before the county board. The board should be mindful of its core values and rights of due process. So even if I had an opinion at this point, which I don't, it's not proper for me to publicly state it and advocate. That's just not how we work, because it's a board decision, not an individual board member decision. And so I just wanted to make that clear. And then the other thing I want to make clear is that certainly the carriages might not be ideal, and certainly if it's possible for the reservoir to go anywhere else, that's where I want it to go. It just makes it so much easier for everybody. There's no preferred site. There's no malintent to put it there. If that's the proposal, that will be the last resort at this point, whether it's due to financial constraints, whether it's due to environmental concerns, whatever it might be. If that's the proposed site, that's where it is. And then at that point, what I will do is I will make a decision whether I want to advocate to my board, not make public appeals, but advocate to my board whether to support that or not. And same as other locations, if I don't feel like they're the right place for this, I'll advocate whether it should be there or not. But what we could end up doing is if it's not one of these locations I've suggested, it just might not be here. And that's the other thing that I'm not ready to decide on, because I do think it's needed at this point. And so it'll just be a weighing factor. But I welcome communication, and Dave has been very responsive and more engaging, and I wish that other involved parties would be so willing to engage rather than making decisions without having all the facts. So,
Trustee Oppenheim?
Excuse me. Ms. Simpson, when we spoke earlier, you had a concern about the funding from the county level in terms of that money being dedicated already, and if it weren't actually applied in a certain period of time.
yes.
Is that still a concern? Is that no longer a concern?
Yeah, no, that's still a concern. I mean, there is some sort of, I don't want to say that there's a counting clock. I mean, I'm working in pushing diligently to get this here, but at some point, the clock could run out and they could say, well, if you're not ready for here at this time, we have a list of other unfunded projects throughout the county, and so we're going to move ahead with something else. And next time, there's an allocation or amount that'll fit this project, it could come back to the table, but I don't know whether that will be 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. I mean, it's no secret that we're facing around a $50 million revenue shortage at this point, so there's not dollars to be found anywhere. Our staff has done an incredible job from the operating side, which is only about 43% of our budget, cutting $20 million. I mean, we had to make a very tough decision today to take away holiday pay, 3 upcoming holiday pays in order to try to get down this deficit. So there is a set amount of money for this project. I mean, if we're talking $1,000 extra or $10,000 extra, I can't say that that's going to be a deal breaker and that there isn't something that we can work out. But if we're talking something that's a significant sum, then we might not have the funds for this project right now.
But in terms of the timing specifically, that was.
The timing
that's not-
specifically, I don't have that timeline right now. I'm going to push as hard as I can to keep advocating for it, but at the same time, there are a lot of unfunded projects, and it is very easy for them to allocate these dollars somewhere else. I'm doing whatever I can for that not to happen, because this is already now going on. Dave might have, we're now 2-3 years now already that this has been allocated, so it's been quite a while. You were involved before I was, so you might have a better answer.
And I would like Dave also to speak, because I know Dave's been involved with this, and I know it's been brought up, and I think you've had some communications. So, and we do have another site that we've looked at, which is at VHAC. So I'd probably have you.
Yeah, if I could help. So I think there's been a look at a few different sites. Lake County Public Works, Mark and I had a really good discussion with Austin, their interim director, and Brittany. So as we were going through things, we all have reached an accord that what do we want? We definitely want this in Vernon Hills. So let's find a solution for a water reservoir. We think there's some viable sites. You know, the Carriages is one of them. We think that we should continue to pursue some other options. They've agreed to that. They've agreed to let's have Vernon Hills and Lake County Public Works look at the environmental report together and select a consultant together, work together. It's very important in Vernon Hills, so we all collectively want to get that done. In terms of the time frame, when we had the initial discussion that it was going to be at the Carriages, and then Aaron Lawler decided it wouldn't go there, basically it was put on hold for a long period of time. So more recently, I applaud Lake County Public Works. They are trying to get a number of things done. The reservoir right outside of my office on Hawthorn Parkway, they've got it draped, they're removing their paint, and they're fixing that. Other reservoirs they've been working on too. This is just an extension of that. But for this specific one, this is something that's just been added to his plate recently, and we've just started discussions probably in March of really, let's move this forward. So we haven't had much time to really go through the scientific analysis of where it should be, the pros and cons of each one, and that's an important step that I think we all need to do. And then once we have the reports, we share it with everyone and we make a good decision.
Do we have any idea when we'll have the information available so that the county can, in fact, move forward with a proposal?
I wouldn't see this being solved in the next 60 days.
Okay.
Not
so
even close. So we
we're
should look
talking
at this
maybe
as a
like
winter
a
discussion.
November timeline and a 2021 construction season at the earliest.
Yeah, and where we're at, they have a contract with Resic to do the water reservoir and where it should go. Until they can figure out the site, they can't really get into the design, et
Detailed
cetera.
design, yeah.
So it's not coming tomorrow, but we'll keep our foot on the gas pedal and make sure we get the report timely. But it is going to be a 60, 90-day minimum process. So let us get that report to everyone.
And, you know, what I'm waiting most intently to see is the independent environmental study, because, I mean, that's a big one for me.
Right.
But I just want to make it clear that I think there's a perception out there that it's just trying to be shoved somewhere, and that's just simply not the case. There's a lot of time and effort, and again, if I could will this anywhere else, I'm willing it. You know,
Well, yeah, so we can kind of maybe look forward to the first meeting in November for the next update?
yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew and the public know that we didn't stand you up since you requested the
Right, no,
presence. So,
That's understood, right.
thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Any other citizens wishing to address the board? Ah. I'm assuming on this same subject.
On the same topic. Yes. no residential recreational
I
park
know we
should
all know you.
ever be considered for a 100-foot, 70-foot tall
Your name?
reservoir. Oh.
Lynn, we all.
Lindiana,
And your address?
485 Grosse Point Circle. It just should not, it doesn't belong there.
Thank you, Lynn. Any other citizens wishing to address the board? Okay, then hearing none, we will move on here. Under the President's report, we have a proclamation for Payroll Week. The American Payroll Association and its more than 20,000 members have launched a nationwide public awareness campaign that pays tribute to the nearly 150 million people who work in the United States and the payroll professionals who support the American system by paying wages, reporting workers' earnings, and withholding federal employment taxes. Payroll professionals in Vernon Hills play a key role in maintaining the economic health of Vernon Hills, carrying out such diverse tasks as paying into the unemployment insurance system, providing information for child support enforcement, and carrying out tax withholding, reporting, and depositing. Payroll departments collectively spend more than $2.4 trillion annually, complying with a myriad federal and state wage and tax laws. Payroll professionals play an increasingly important role ensuring the economic security of American families by helping to identify non-custodial parents and making sure they comply with their child support mandates. Payroll professionals have become increasingly proactive in educating both the business community and the public at large about the payroll tax withholding systems. Payroll professionals meet regularly with federal and state tax officials to discuss both improving compliance with government procedures and how compliance can be achieved at less cost to both government and businesses. And the week in which Labor Day falls has been proclaimed National Payroll Week. Now therefore be it proclaimed that Roger Byrne, President of the Village of Vernon Hills, does hereby proclaim that September 11th through the 20th, 2020 is Payroll Week in the Village of Vernon Hills, dated this 11th day of August. Next would be the village manager.
Just two quick announcements. Number one, reminder that the next village board meeting is scheduled for September 1st, Tuesday, September 1st at 7 p.m. And just an acknowledgement that the Mayor Byrne will be signing Declaration 20-10, which is just a continuation of the state of emergency in Vernon Hills that was established back in March and will continue at least until the next board meeting, where the next one will probably be signed, and the intent is to keep the state of emergency in effect as long as the governor keeps the state of emergency in effect for the state of Illinois.
Okay. Next item would then be Finance Director Treasurer, a financial update.
I have no report this evening. I'll have a report for you in September.
Okay. All right. Census 2020, is that you, Deputy Chief?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and Board. Just briefly, census update. We have field workers starting today out in Vernon Hills, so you will see them out there. They should be properly identified. Our communications center has been advised of this, and we've also posted to our social media. You'll see the chief on there, followed up by CSO Irma Fierros to translate in Spanish, but just a reminder that law enforcement doesn't get any of the data. And it's a good reminder, if you have a chance to take a look at that, please do so. It's my understanding our self-reporting rate is right around 77% right now, which is great, and we encourage people to participate in the census. And I think the Assistant Village Manager and possibly Dr. Watkins would like to add some perspective from a village standpoint.
And what exactly are they looking for in the way of an ID?
We didn't issue the IDs, so perhaps you guys can add on what exactly to look for.
That is correct. I can put another post out tomorrow, but there is identification that they have. It's a lanyard, and it says U.S. Census Bureau field worker on it, okay. And clearly visible, and I believe now they're even wearing some sort of vest as well. But I can put all that out tomorrow just as a illustration or a graphic for people to actually see. As the DC said, the Vernon Hills Complete Count Committee, we started off with a lot of challenges at the beginning of this effort. As many know, there was a concern about, people identifying themselves in a climate in which there were concerns about if you're an illegal or a non-resident, what may happen to them. And then we run into a pandemic. And, I'm not sure that, people are completely comfortable with the idea of people coming up to their house and saying, hey, I want to interview you and get this information. But through our messaging with all of our partners, which include the school district, library district, townships, park district, I think the messaging has been consistent, and for the most part, I believe it's reached its intended audience. We're mirroring the same numbers as 10 years ago with a greater population that didn't have to go through all the challenges we are this year. So I would take that as a victory. The number is 77%, and again, I hope that we turn it over to the field workers in a good place. As I have Dr. Watkins for another segment later, you want to say any comments on the Census Committee and the efforts?
Well, just briefly, as Deputy Chief and John had mentioned, the pandemic actually slowed things down. The biggest piece was that we were concerned about communication, getting the word out to everyone about how the data is utilized, but also the importance of actually self-reporting. So with the pandemic, we had to reinvent ourselves as far as communication, because you didn't have that word of mouth and individuals going into places where the normal media wouldn't make it. So we're very pleased with the number thus far. We hope that the workers will then help to push the number up a little bit higher. But I definitely want to say thank you to the committee. They've really gelled together as a community effort, and I think this is a great example of how something is important that it affects us all. When we come together, we can make something happen positively. So thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, anything else on that? Okay. Then, if there's nothing else from staff, the next item would be the omnibus vote agenda. Is there a motion to approve items A through J?
So made.
Second?
Motion is second. I had a question about J.
Okay.
I know we're approving this well in advance of their September dates. Are we taking into account the contact that this might bring about, or how are they planning on? I just want to be on the safe side, make sure everybody understands. We're talking about the Knights of Columbus annual Tootsie Roll Drive.
I believe this is just the formality in terms of getting the date on the calendar,
Right.
and they will respond to us with their procedures later.
Okay, and then we would then have the ability to,
Absolutely.
if we don't think it's a safe situation.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure.
For that
Trustee
purpose, then, should we pull it in order to amend it to include that no permits will be issued without clarification regarding health protocols being submitted to and approved by the village staff?
Sure. That's pretty much how we do it now. Everything that comes in through us goes through the Community Development Department, and we review that for appropriateness.
All right, so required or not? My pulling it.
Should we with,
I think that would be a good idea.
okay.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
to be very clear.
So you,
The first agrees to pull.
so it's A through I,
Yes.
minus J. Second agree? Second. Okay. All right, so we have a motion, second. Any other questions or comments on A through I? Hearing none, roll call, please.
President Byrne, trustees Takaoka,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item J, a request from the Knights of Columbus to hold their annual Tootsie Roll Drive in the village of Vernon Hills on September 18th through the 20th, 2020.
Motion to approve as stated with the amendment that there will no permit, no final approvals, or any final approval will be required by village staff after they have, in fact, reviewed and approved the protocols that they are looking to put in place for this fundraising event. Easy for you to say.
Okay. Seconded by trustee Marco? Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any other comments or questions? Trustee
I
Allen?
have a question. So have they mentioned or preliminarily any idea as to how they can maintain safety and distance while they're fundraising?
There we go. I'm not sure if they've established any new protocols or not, or what their protocols are going to be. They may modify them. I don't think they'll be standing out on the street corners this year. I would be surprised. But a lot of what they do is in the parking lots of stores where they can get permission to do that in the churches. So we'll have to see what their protocols are. We'll reach out to them and find out. Because I think a lot of people's procedures for how they're doing things have changed significantly this year.
Well, especially something like handing out candy. I mean,
Right,
it's-
right.
But handing out
I'll
candy, but
donate,
also
but don't give me.
they're collecting money, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Aren't they? So
That can be done more safely than,
That can be done rather easily just by wearing gloves. I mean, every grocery store, fast food store you go into, they're wearing
well,
gloves.
but but a lot of them aren't using cash. Many are only taking credit cards for that exact reason. So I don't know if that.
There'll be multiple people touching and breathing out their car windows on the bucket, or actually, they used to have the canisters, and you had to stuff the change and/or folded bills in there, which would require quite a bit of handling. So, yeah, there needs to be a bucket, and you just kind of toss it in.
last week.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything
We will
else?
get that information. We will report it back to you probably, maybe Friday in the transmittal.
Thank you.
Anything else on this? Okay, hearing none, no. Roll call, please.
President Byrne. Trustee Schultz.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Oppenheimer.
Aye.
Takaoka.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, new business and communication. Proposed diversity and inclusivity consultancy for the village.
Events that we have witnessed over the last several months has caused for us both as individuals and collectively as a provider of government services to reflect on our mission, the manner in which we deliver services, and community expectations. Many of us have served this community for several years, and while we feel there is an earned trust and we have confidence in our policies and practices within the various departments, our confidence as managers and leaders of the organization can and should be affirmed by external sources. As Chief Crease has shared how the police department subscribes to a policy implementation system based on nationwide best practices, Supreme Court rulings, and federal and state law, and as law enforcement actions regarding traffic and pedestrian stops are submitted to the state for annual reporting and review, along with frequently developing engagement strategies for organizational improvement and greater accountability, few external review programs exist for municipal government. We want the board and we want the community to know we are an organization that strives for equity, consistency, and constant improvement in the manner we deliver services. We believe an opportunity exists to reflect and positively engage through an external evaluation. And with an external evaluation, similar to the manner that the finance department is audited, we believe our policies and practices should be professionally reviewed and validated as well. The manager's office is proposing a diversity and inclusivity consultation for the village. Last month, we met with Dr. Brian Watkins to discuss the scope of this type of external assessment and a consultancy. Dr. Watkins' resume includes serving many higher education institutions as an executive with roles that include institutional accreditation, regulatory compliance, implementation of new programs, recruitment, and assessment. In addition to service with higher education, Dr. Watkins has been involved with both municipal law enforcement, the sheriff's office, and county government through a variety of initiatives to include professional development of the workforce, community engagement, and strategic planning. I would like to again introduce Dr. Brian Watkins and let him further discuss our planned scope of services and our proposed engagement plan, and together we can answer any questions you may have. Dr. Watkins, you want to go to the dais?
Thank you, members of the board. Did everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Thank you. Released. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's a pleasure to be here again. As John had mentioned, certainly the heightened events that are happening in our country as of late certainly brought this to more of a conversation. But I want to point out that from my work and some pre-conversations I've had with some of the department heads, Vernon Hills was headed in the right direction anyway. As you heard, some of the work that the police department has been doing, they've actually worked with the NAACP and adopted some of their practices, in addition to some of the national benchmarks. So the village is heading in the right direction in the sense of wanting to look at itself, having looked at itself, and so we're going to continue to do that. And so that's really what this consultancy is about, is the first stage is to really look at ourselves. One of the things I want to point out is that when we think about diversity and inclusivity, you always hear the word systemic, and sometimes it's used in a negative way and sometimes a positive way. But I like to point out that, systemic certainly is wide-ranging, but it's also integrated and internal. And so when you take it to the next step of looking at changing a culture of an organization, institution, whatever, you come to dealing with humans. And so then I like to break the word down, and I like to take systemic and change it and say it's about behavior, it's about habit. And those are the processes. So, and we internalize those things. And so what do? Is that in stressful situations, we go to what we know. And so we just automatically react. And so when you're changing culture, it takes more time to do that. And so that's really what we're looking at, is we're looking at just checking to make sure that our go-to reactions are appropriate, and or if not, what can we do to change those? And so that's what this consultancy will be about. So the first stage is certainly looking at the internal and external processes and policies that we already have in place. How does the village portray itself to the outside? I was having a conversation with a staff member, and I said that, when we're looking at hiring, we want to make sure that from the outside looking in, that the outside sees us as a fair and equitable place to apply for a job. And if I certainly qualify for the job, then maybe I'll be hired. But we want to get to the point where an individual is willing to at least apply and not say, they'll never even consider me, so why bother? So this is what this process will be about, is to have some conversations about that. We'll also look at the ethnic, gender makeup of our staff and how it relates to the community at large. And we'll look at the ranks of those individuals to make sure that we're getting some diversity in positions, and or in the future, how can we make some adjustments there? So we'll do some of that. We'll also have some conversations with staff as we talk about looking at putting together an actual diversity and inclusion kind of statement for the village, and work through some of those processes. We'll have some meetings with some of the community members to see what their perceptions are of the village, and are we doing a good job or an adequate job, or how can we do better? Because one of the things that in my practice is that in consultation, I always believe, I call it inclusive consultation. And I mean it from the standpoint of that when you go in to have consultation, you don't just talk to the leadership team. You have to go a couple layers down, because certainly those individuals who are at 50,000 feet don't know everything that goes on at 10,000 feet. And so, so the inclusive conversation is at all levels. And so we'll talk to the village members. We'll also talk to the department heads. We'll talk to their direct reports, and then some of their staff members, just to make sure that that the puzzle is what we think it is. And then from there, we can start to put together some policies and procedures and tie them into some of the national benchmarking pieces. But what we do know, and every community knows this, is that national benchmarks are great, but one size doesn't fit all. Vernon Hills is different from every other community around the country, and in some ways we're the same. So that's the idea, is to help to shape what works best for the village. And so I'm very excited about being able to work with the village members again on some of this process. So if I could answer any questions for you. And of course, we'll be reporting back out, by the way, so.
Any questions from the board? Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes, thank you. So do you, does your organization do this already for other municipalities? I was looking in your resume, I didn't.
No, not other municipalities. No, I've actually done other work with municipalities, but no, not this. And that's something to look at also, because what I think could occur is that this could become, Vernon Hills could become the benchmark. But then what we do is we start to move to the neighboring communities and we start to broaden out. So then we have consistency in the way we hire, the way we look at diversity and inclusion, and so then you have collaboration with other communities. So this could be something more, certainly.
So what other organizations have you done this type of work?
Smaller, actually, organizations, not-for-profits. There's the Center for Ethics and Advocacy, which is based out of Techney, Illinois. That's one of them that I've done that with. And also at the institution level. So I've worked with institutions in Pennsylvania, Holy Family University, Rosemont College, in talking about these types of things. So this is something that evolves out of promotion, because in some of my communication and consultation, we talk about leadership. And when we talk about leadership, we talk about succession planning, we talk about promotion, and in there, diversity and inclusion is woven into it. So, so some of my practice has really involved this, but it hasn't been directly involved in this piece. So we're taking this piece out separately.
It's more of a statement rather than a question. We've always been on what I consider the leading edge. Thanks to Mark, when he was the chief, he brought us down the path of getting accredited as a police organization, which in fact leads back into some of the things you were talking about, where we in fact are practicing and put into place certain protocols from national organizations that facilitate a better understanding of who we are as individuals, as police officers, as a community, and how we relate to the community at large. And we've done that, we've been consistent in that, and I look at this as just another one of those steps that we're taking moving forward. And while I'm a practical person, not enamored with your educational background, which is extensive and laudatory, I believe that what you're going to bring to this party in conjunction with the staff that we have here is going to be an improvement over what I believe is already an exceptional police department, an outstanding public works department that provides exemplary service, and a community relations and community development group that is far and above everybody else. And I think when we're all done, we're going to be bringing other communities to wish that they had taken initiatives like we have. And so with that, Godspeed and good luck.
Thank you.
If the,
Do we need a motion?
I was going to say, if the board concurs, we'd appreciate at least direction to have staff prepare the ordinance to engage the services of Dr. Watkins.
Do you need that in form of a motion?
Sure.
Motion to prepare the necessary documentation to engage in diversity consultation.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, a roll call, please.
President Byrne, Trustees Schultz,
Aye.
Markforth,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takao.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is approval and passage of Resolution 2020-24, a resolution granting approval to operate an outdoor special event for Hawthorn Mall located at 122 Hawthorn Center. Mike?
Yes, thank you. I can give a brief summary while a representative of Hawthorn Mall goes to the podium. The request for the outdoor event is for an outdoor movie that would take place on Thursday, August 20th. That's why it's on new business tonight, because there's not another meeting between now and August 20th, obviously. The movie would be conducted from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. There is a rain date that would be August 23rd. That also would be from 8 to 10 p.m. Vehicles would be located within a barricaded area, and they'd be spaced 6 feet apart. They would be facing a movie screen that's approximately 20 feet by 40 feet that would be located in the lower level Sears, formerly Sears parking lot. Customers would be required to stay within their vehicles, except for those times when they're going to the washroom, and there would be porta potties on site, or if they're getting food, which would be served by eateries within Hawthorn Mall, including Claim Company. Everyone involved with the event would be required to follow protocols as provided in the Phase 4 guidelines specific to social gathering and distancing, or the current governor's standing order, whichever is more restrictive. The mall will also employ professional security services to monitor the event to make sure everyone is complying with social distancing requirements. The application and site plan is attached to your packet. So for tonight, if the board feels the temporary event is appropriate, then a motion approving the attached resolution is recommended. And again, a representative of Hawthorn Mall is here if you have any questions.
Good evening, members of the board. Tom Sheehy, Facilities Manager for Hawthorn Mall. I'm going to answer that lady's question first. It's going to be Jurassic Park. So, you know, we're going with the classic, and we're just looking to provide a service, a little relief, given the circumstances, where people can get out of the house, and also bring, you know, attention back to the mall, you know, and we're just looking for just a nice evening where people can watch a nice movie, enjoy time with their family, have some, and once again, you know, we're gonna have some tenants from inside the mall, some food vendors. We're not gonna have anything crazy. It's just gonna be simple food, burgers, hot dogs. We're gonna provide 4 porta potties, hand washing stations, sanitizing stations at both the food and the rest areas. We're going to have proper signage to alert people to stay within their cars. We're going to have added security to enforce that, along with everybody from the management office. Our security director, Zach Huss, also reached out to Jeff Seelick with VHPD, and he said he was going to post a detail for 3 VHPD officers. I haven't heard an update on that yet, so we will follow up on that. But even with our own security staff and our management staff, I think we have sufficient coverage, you know, to operate the event. We will have appropriate signage for entering and exiting, as we will require tickets to be purchased ahead of time to monitor the amount of people that will be attending the event. As it stands right now, and with a very conservative number, we're looking to sell 100 tickets. It's going to be $5 per car, and it's going to be on Eventbrite. And this is actually going to be a charitable event where all the ticket proceeds we're going to donate to Northwestern Lake Forest Hospital. We're going to cater for the first responders over there, you know, a lunch or dinner, you know, depending on how many tickets we could sell, you know, so we'll monitor at that time. We're also going to have our T-Mobile representatives from inside the mall as well will be sponsoring the event, and they'll be also assisting. So, you know, it's going to be pretty simple, just a nice drive-in movies experience for the community, just to have a nice night out and enjoy summer.
You're acquiring a radio band, and you'll
Yes.
broadcast it over.
Yeah, so the company that we're going through does have a FM frequency radio band, so it's not going to interfere with any of our neighbors or the businesses across the street, you know, across Milwaukee. So yeah, so this will all be maintained in their car, everybody's vehicles, and yeah, so nobody will know anything except for seeing dinosaurs across the street.
Unless I bring my giant Bose speakers.
There you go, yeah.
Questions or comments from the board? Dr. Oppenheim?
So is AMC going to provide popcorn?
So unfortunately, we don't have an official opening date for AMC. So this is also another way to kind of get people out to wanting to see movies again, as AMC kind of keeps pushing their date back to whenever movies are getting released again. So right now they're saying late August. So we're trying to get a movie experience in prior to them opening.
Well, that's why I was hoping they would come out, at least give us their fresh popcorn.
They do have the best popcorn, I know, but no, I mean, unfortunately, that's not the
They won't do
case.
that.
I don't know, I mean, we'll try again, we'll keep asking, but as it stands right now, we do have a cart that's gonna be doing cotton candy and popcorn, but not AMC, unfortunately.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So made.
Second. Motion a second. Any, hearing no comments or questions, a roll call, please?
President Byrne, trustees Markfort.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Oppenheim.
Aye.
Dr. Opel.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. And once again, date and time?
It's gonna be August 20th at 8 PM. Vendors will start setting up at 6 if you wanna get a good spot. So, much appreciated, thank you so much, have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is approval and passage of ordinance 2020-090 and ordinance amending 2020-058, authorizing approval of expenditures to Lauterbach and Amon LLP for accounting and financial oversight.
I
Who's
got
handling
it.
this instead?
That would be me.
Okay.
As part of the 2021 village budget, the board approved the addition of one new administrative assistant for Public Works. This position was not one of the budget reductions that was proposed or contemplated during the COVID discussions. This position has recently been filled by Mary Grampo. Mary is a longtime employee with the village's finance department and has a tremendous amount of institutional knowledge of personnel, village, and finance operations, all of which has made her a perfect fit for the vacancy in Public Works. With Mary's transfer to Public Works, a vacancy has now been created within the Finance Department. The vacancy is for an Administrative Assistant Classification 2, and the salary and benefits for this position range from $78,552 to $90,688 for a new employee at Step 1, entry level, and to $93,124 to $108,860 for an individual that was at Step 7, the more experienced employee. The difference in the ranges within the same steps is determined by the marital status of each employee. Marital health insurance for a married individual goes from about $7,000 or $8,000 to about $22,000 per family. In discussions with Lauterbach and Amon, our financial contractors, since they have they're the ones that have to work with the individual, they've offered to fill this position within their staff for a negotiated rate of $50,000 annually. This represents a potential annual savings of at least $28,500 to about $58,860, depending upon the qualifications and marital status of the individual being hired. In addition to the cost savings, Vernon Hills would obviously not be responsible for the recruitment, hiring, and training, or the continued training or the benefits for this new employee. On April 21st of this year, the board approved Ordinance 2020-058 in an amount not to exceed $484,100. Staff is recommending approval of Ordinance 2020-090, which is the one in front of you tonight, which increases the monthly payments to Lauterbach and Amon by $4,167, which is actually the $50,000 divided by 12, at a total annual cost not to exceed $534,100.
Okay. Trustee Schultz.
Whenever we're dealing with the finance agreements and arrangements that we have, I just want to make clear my position. My position is I have no problem with outsourcing the staff level functions for the finance department. I have no problem with this conversion of that position to being an employee of Lauterbach and Amon. However, I still have grave concerns that our village treasurer / finance director is not an employee of the Village of Vernon Hills, but is in fact an employee of Lauterbach and Amon. So with that being said, one would think I'd be not in favor of this and also item 4, which is just updating the current year, so to speak. So with that being said, I will be voting in the affirmative, but I want to make it perfectly clear that while I have no problem with the outsourcing of the staff level functioning, I still have a grave problem with the leadership not being an employee of the Village of Vernon Hills. End of statement.
So noted. Any other comments or questions by board members? Okay, do we have a motion then?
I think we need a motion and a
Yeah,
second.
so I said.
So made.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, approving 2020-090. Could we have a roll call, please?
President Byrne. Trustees Schultz.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Oppenheimer.
Aye.
Takaloka.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item then is the approval and passage of ordinance 2020-091, an ordinance amending the annual budget of the Village of Vernon Hills, County of Lake, State of Illinois for the fiscal year beginning May 1, 2020 and ending April 30th, 2021.
Again, this is the companion ordinance that goes along with the previous ordinance. It does not increase the general fund obligation. It's a transfer of funds from one account to another.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
President Byrne. Trustees Schultz.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Oppenheimer.
Aye.
Takaloka.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We don't.
Anybody have any other new business or communication?
Yeah, I have
of any
something.
kind? Yes.
Um,
Trustee Taco.
Yeah. Kerry Getlin, he's commissioner of Vernon Hills Community Baseball. He just wanted to express his gratitude for the support of the village for the baseball tournaments that went on here last weekend. He said went off very successfully and, you know, outside of a few complaints as expected to get, he wanted to thank you, the village, for the support. Things went very well.
I believe it went extremely well. In fact, you say some complaints that may be minor, but I think all in all, it was a very good, very well put together and a very good success for it.
And a copy of his email will be in the transmittal this week.
Okay.
And you may have a new career as overall czar of youth baseball.
No, sir. No, sir.
As
That's
we,
my first dabbling into the world of baseball. I'll stay with soccer. And Halloween.
the Grinch who stole Halloween.
I'll always be remembered for canceling Halloween.
Well, no, you didn't cancel Halloween. You canceled trick or treating.
Well,
You can
Let's clarify.
cancel the NFL.
postpone.
You can cancel college football, but don't mess with Halloween. That's what I've learned.
Well, Nebraska said they're going to play. They're going to find the Little Sisters of the Poor or whoever, but they're going to play football.
Okay, anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn any closed session? All right. Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn and go to committee of the whole.
So made.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call. Or all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned.
Then if there's no objections, I'd like to call the Vernon Hills Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Roll call, please.
President Byrne. Trustees Markwart.
Aye.
Cook.
Here.
Oppenheimer. Takaloka.
Here.
Schultz.
Here. Mr. Clerk,
We have a quorum.
at this point in time, I'd like to nominate Trustee Cook to be the President Pro Tem for the remainder of this Committee of the Whole meeting.
We have a motion
Motion and a second.
and a second. Roll call, please.
President Byrne. Trustees Markwart.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Oppenheim.
Aye.
Takaoka.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. All right.
Congratulations again.
First item of business is approval of the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from July 21st, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any comments, questions, corrections, additions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
President Byrne. Trustees Markwart.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Oppenheim.
Aye.
Takaoka.
Abstain?
Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item of business, the request for an outdoor dining and seating establishment permit for Fairgrounds located at 899 Milwaukee Avenue, Suite 300.
Thank you. I've noticed the applicant's not here. I'll let the board decide. You could still take the action on this matter. There's no alcohol involved. It's a pretty straightforward request. Or we could simply reschedule it onto another meeting when we can have the owner or manager from Fairgrounds here. I'll first get the board's direction on that.
Well, it actually appears pretty straightforward. I mean, I went over there today to look at that in the location, and my only question would be, is it going to interfere at all with that big sign that's behind them? It's on the side that the giant sign for Melody Farms is, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and it would not interfere with the sign. It would be in close proximity to the sign, but there's some fencing that's going to be there that would help separate the area where you dine from where the sign is located. And then the outdoor dining area would be located on the patio that was created in anticipation of an outdoor dining area. And for this request, there'd be 10 tables with a seating capacity of 50 customers. So for tonight, if the board wants to take action, then staff should be directed to prepare a resolution approving the outdoor dining license in accordance with the plans that are attached to your packet and the conditions that are outlined in your packet. If the board does not wish to direct staff to do that, then again, we could place this on a future agenda.
On the drawing that's in our packet, the top of that drawing, that's the street side of the building, correct? Because this is next door to next door.
Yeah, this is on the east side of next door American Eatery.
Okay, and so there is still sidewalk.
Correct. There is. It's hard to read it.
That's why
I have a paper copy. There's a. There would be 12 feet 7.5 inches between where the fence is and the back of curb.
Okay.
Yeah. So there'd be plenty of space for pedestrians to safely, walk without having to be on the parking lot.
Okay. What's the board's pleasure?
They're not putting up a fence, or they are? I'm seeing a fence.
They are, Trustee Schultz. They're putting it up at 3 locations.
Right.
They're leaving openings at the corner and a couple other locations. There'd be no gate, but again, no service of alcohol either.
Right, so if someone does in fact, at some future point in time, decide they want to serve alcohol, they can fill in the blanks, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't have a problem.
So is there?
Do you have a problem with it?
No, staff has no objection to the request.
Then is there a motion to approve?
Motion directing staff to prepare a
Motion,
resolution?
yes.
Direct staff to prepare the necessary ordinance. So made.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
President Byrne. Trustees Cook.
Aye.
Oppenheim.
Aye.
Takaoka.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Just as an aside, I don't think I'd fit in one of those hanging chairs.
Or get out.
Oh, we should have put that in ordinance.
Bigger chair.
Without physical assistance, yes.
Next item is Shake Shack, 864 East Town Line Road, consideration of a report and recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval of a special use permit allowing a drive-through pickup window, along with approval to amend the site and landscape.
Thank you, and I can give a brief summary of the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation and then turn it over to the petitioner who can answer any questions that you might have. And for clarification, this is simply a drive-through pickup window. Orders would be placed online or through an app. A payment would be made at the time that you make the order. So the window would be simply to drive up to, pick up your order, and drive away. So on the screen in front of you shows, on the bottom picture, shows the east elevation of Shake Shack. And you could see where the existing window frame would be replaced with an openable drive-through window. The next slide shows where the drive-through lane would be installed. There'd be 2 landscape islands that would be reconfigured to create the lane. The lane would be out of concrete to differentiate from the adjoining asphalt, which is the parking field. And there'd be a queuing of 6 in line, which complies with the zoning requirements that apply to this property, which is the regional plan unit development for the Cuneo property. That requires 5 queuing spaces. So staff is comfortable with the amount of queuing, given the fact that you don't drive to a menu board, make an order, and then wait to pick up your food. So the Planning and Zoning Commission conducted a public hearing on July 28th to consider a request for a special use permit for the drive-through, and also to consider a request for revisions to the site plan and the landscape plan. During the meeting, commission members were generally supportive of the site plan and determined that 6 queuing spaces were appropriate. Commission members did, however, comment that they thought a crosswalk through the drive-through lane would be appropriate to serve pedestrians who are using the east side parking field to help them cross the drive-through lane to get to the main door to the restaurant. And that has been included as condition number 6 in the report and recommendation to you. Commission members also requested that directional signs be placed indicating that the drive-through is for app orders and for pickup only, and that that be placed at an appropriate location. That too is included as condition number 7 in their report and recommendation to you. Beyond that, the Planning and Zoning Commission was supportive of the special use permit. They raised no objections to that, and they were also satisfied with the landscape plan, which is right there before you. That shows you how the new landscape would work out. Note that there's a new landscape island at the, that would be at the southeast corner of the building as well. So at that meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission, on a vote of 6 in favor and 0 against, recommended approval of the special use permit for a drive-through window. And also on a vote of 6 in favor and 0 against, the commission recommended approval of preliminary and final site plan and landscape revisions. So for tonight, if the COW concurs with the Planning and Zoning, with the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation, then staff should be directed to prepare an ordinance approving the special use permit, site plan revisions, and landscape revisions in accordance with the conditions that are outlined in the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation attached to your packet. And again, the petitioner is here to answer any questions that you might have.
First, would you identify yourself for the...
Yes, my name is Jared Plasek, and I am a project manager with Manhard Consulting, which is the civil engineers for this project, as well as the civil engineers that did the entire Melody Farm development. So very familiar with this particular location.
Does the board have any comments or questions? Trustee Oppenheim?
Where do you anticipate the crosswalk would go?
Is that slide, does it happen to be included? Okay, I can describe it. I also have it on a flash drive if there's a need to see it further. But the intent would be to provide a crosswalk right at this location that would connect kind of at a slight diagonal in order for it to be then perpendicular across this lane, and then there's still room for the 6 queuing spots. And then that crosswalk connects you directly to the front of the Shake Shack and allows for pedestrian traffic.
So it's right between 1 and 2? Or?
It's right between 1 and 2. So it'd be immediately after number 1 and still allowing for space for number 2 and 3, because previously the shown dimensions for 2 and 3 were slightly larger just based on the geometry of the curve.
Where's the window?
The window is located approximately right here, yep. And the idea with the stacked space for number one was using the, where a typical car would be located. So the intent would that be that the crosswalk would be behind where that car is located.
Well, and the crosswalk would be then about where those people are in the,
Correct, yes,
Right there.
exactly. That's exactly where the crosswalk would end up going. So that would allow for a car to park here, and you could even, you could envision it overhanging here and then lining up with the drive-through window.
The people would really be right at, they'd be the north side of 2, it looks like.
Correct, the north side of 2,
Really?
yes.
Yeah, not
So the
really-
crosswalk would actually add a separation element to 1 and 2, and I think better help locate those cars in the queuing lane.
the couple of those islands have a couple of fairly tall trees. Are those being relocated on the property? Because the drawing shows short vegetation?
We have modified the vegetation in order to try to better align with the use of the drive-through, but the intent of the trees that are there is to adhere to the overall landscaping design elements. In terms of the larger versus smaller trees, they haven't necessarily been relocated. It would just be repurposed in that area.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
Is there any concern that cars are coming around the curve from 4 to 3 to 2 and they might not see someone crossing, especially if there's...
It's low bushes. There shouldn't be any concern from a visibility standpoint. And in terms of speed, I don't think that, it's going to be traveling at a high velocity around this corner. I think there's a pretty long runway there.
To help with that comment, we may want to look at the serviceberry tree. It's the tallest, it's probably the only thing that's going to block a person, but maybe the serviceberry tree that is due east of spot number 2, we may want to we may not want to have something taller there to address your concern.
Just afraid if the 3-year-old gets ahead of the parents as they're going through and someone's coming around.
Understood.
I don't see the little one there. And then,
Yeah.
Or should they put some kind of speed bump?
So in terms of a speed bump, it was something that, we had looked at in terms of once the crosswalk was desired from the village, and something that was even being considered by Shake Shack internally as well. The challenge with trying to put any kind of a speed bump is from like a grading perspective, it doesn't work just due to the fact there's a existing grease trap that's just north of spot 1. So locating a speed bump here is going to end up resulting in likely some kind of a water issue there where you're going to have some standing water. So I don't think it's going to be a benefit. I think it's going to be a long-term issue. So
What if there was a temporary speed bump? Are you familiar with Mundeleins Park District where the Barefoot Bay?
Are you talking about, you're talking about basically installing something maybe further back?
It's a rubber speed bump that's chained at both ends to keep it in place during the season. What's going to happen is someone's going to be digging for their money or their credit card or their phone when they're getting up to the queue, and that's the point where you're going to have an issue with car versus person. So, that's, the speed bump isn't a bad idea, because if nothing else, it'll wake you up to the fact that, hey, there's a lot of things going on, and I got to focus on maintaining control of the automobile. So it may not be a bad idea to have a speed bump.
I think in terms of its location, if you're talking about installing a
between, yeah.
I would recommend though it being further back, more.
I'd put it between 1 and 2, or at worst case 2 and 3.
Yeah, between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
I think.
Between 1 and 2 is where the crosswalk is.
Yeah.
So what would you do in the wintertime if it's snowing and you can't see it?
from a plowing standpoint.
I don't know. I mean, it does snow, I mean.
Yeah, that's why during the wintertime, they come out. They take them out at that park there and store them until the next spring.
Is there a liability issue? What if someone trips on it and, I don't know?
Well,
Especially something that you move like that, I mean, that's not like built in. I get a speed bump in the complexity of that, but if you put something out there, I'm thinking there's some liability there, possibly.
Well, no one
I
should
don't
be
know.
walking in the
Well, of course.
the traffic lane.
I get
And they're like the required tape that you put on stair edges and whatever, they're multicolored. They're
And
yellow and
something-
black, high vis.
Is there liability there?
I would say too, something that's so open and obvious probably does not create a liability situation. There's an open and obvious doctrine which protects premises owners from liability. It's clearly visible.
Right, because if there's no cars and kids are running and the kid runs, falls, and I don't know.
If this helps, it's interesting because the very similar discussion happened at the public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and a couple of things came out of that discussion. Number one was that if you're in the drive-through lane, it's highly likely you're driving a lot slower than if you're anywhere else in the parking lot. So that's probably one of the safer places to cross to get to the sidewalk. And so ultimately, after the Planning and Zoning Commission discussed this very topic, they decided to recommend the crosswalk, and they thought that would be appropriate, and they left it at that. I just wanted to share that with you.
Sure, no, a clearly delineated crosswalk is definitely a good step forward. I'm just saying that, you know, if I'm going through a drive-through lane, and shame on me, but, you know, get the ball, I gotta get the card out here.
It's already prepaid, though.
You've already paid.
You've already
Well,
prepaid.
all right.
Hey,
It's prepaid and it's a pickup, so it's a little bit of a different application because
Yeah, but do I need to, okay, I got, you know, with the.
you would have to give some kind of an indication of that, but because it's likely to be on your phone, it's going to be a little bit of a different procedure than it would be if you're trying to search for your wallet. I think you're not going to be searching for your phone or your wallet, much like you typically would maybe at another drive-through application because of the different media source that they're using. I think in reality, as was kind of mentioned earlier, you're going to be driving slower, already have paid, you've already have indicated that you're there, because one of the things is going to be you have to indicate prior to getting to the drive-through lane that you're on your way or you've arrived. So what will end up happening is there's going to be less of an inclination to not be focused on the actual pickup of the drive-through than you would at, you know, your traditional drive-through experience where you are ordering, and then yes, I've done it myself, where you are looking down trying to find your wallet or whatever else. It's a little bit more of a hectic experience. I think this is going to be a little bit smoother, and I would argue from maybe a liability standpoint, not so much, but I would think more from a plowing standpoint or from any other applications that the introduction of a speed bump, I think, would actually lead to maybe more issues than the benefit that you might see.
How is the crosswalk going to be delineated?
It would just be striped, and it would be delineated typical to any other crosswalk.
Full striping, not just the outer, but cross like we do in the village here with our streets, like you did right here at Camden and Evergreen.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from the board is we want to make sure it's as safe as possible. I think the larger issue we have is trying to make sure it's as visible, people are seeing one another, and I think some of the landscaping we need to look at. In terms of the crossing, I wouldn't mind looking at where this crossing actually should be with Manhard, make it as safe as possible. To answer your question as far as how we would do the striping, et cetera, we'll find a solution to make it very visible. I understand what the board's concern is. If I could work with Manhard, I think I'll get you to where you want to be.
So would that require any amendments to your?
One of the recommendations in there is that the final site plan is subject to review and approval by the village engineer. So that's something that we can work through as part of the permit process. We can make sure that crosswalk meets our village engineer's requirements, if that's acceptable to the board.
It's acceptable to me. I guess
Okay,
without,
any other questions, concerns?
without any further ado then, motion to approve, or motion to direct staff to prepare the necessary ordinance in conjunction with the recommendations previously made by the Planning and Zoning Commission and with the specific requirement that the village engineer have final site approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any other additional comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
President Byrne, trustees Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Harcourt,
Aye.
Cook.
Aye. Motion
Thank you very
carries.
much for your time.
Thank you.
Item 4, GBT Realty Corporation, presentation of a concept plans for a proposed Firestone Auto Care facility and a quick service restaurant located at the shops of Gregg's Landing.
Thank you. I'll just give a real brief summary to the board. Again, this is just concept presentation, and the request is really it has two parts to it. Okay, the first one is the Firestone dealership, which you see on the site plan in front of you. It's the lot immediately north of Aldi's in the shops of Gregg's Landing. For that site, the petitioner is requesting feedback from the board and consideration, if the board thinks it's appropriate, to move on to the technical review process. And I can review some of that with you, and the petitioner will present it for you. The second part of it is just north of Firestone, and that's a QSR, a quick service restaurant that they're considering for that site. They don't have an end user. Really, all they're looking for here is just general feedback from the board regarding that type of use, a quick service restaurant at that location. With that information, it'll help them understand better how to market the property, understanding if the board would be generally supportive of that. They are not looking to send the QSR site on to technical review. Again, just general feedback. I'll just quickly go through this. This shows a little more detail in the site plans. Again, just concept review. This gives you an idea of what the Firestone would look like. It's an all brick and stone building. We like that. The center picture, it would be the north elevation. That's the back of the building. That faces the main access drive within the development. Staff believes we need to do better on that elevation, better articulate the way that looks. But we like the way they've started with it. We like all brick. That'll look good next to Aldi's and Menards as well. And I really don't want to go any further with it. You know, they gave us some plans on the QSR, but again, they don't have an end user. They just want to know, is the board willing to consider a quick service restaurant at that location? So,
We have an
Is
example.
quick service restaurant a new phrase for fast food?
yeah, it could be Starbucks, it could be Raising Cane's,
Okay,
it
no, I
could
just
be.
wanted to make sure we're talking,
Yeah.
yeah.
It sounds fancy.
Yeah, it's not, well, that's why I was saying, you know,
QSR?
yeah, QSR is,
Yeah, so again.
sounds a lot better than a fast food restaurant.
So again, two separate requests. One Firestone.
Expedited.
Does the
feeding
board
it
want it to
through.
go to technical review? And then the QSR, what do you think? But they're not looking to go to technical review, and I'll just send it off to the petitioner from here.
Would you like to say anything? Go ahead.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. My name is Hal Frank. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Meltzer, Pertil, and Stell. I'm very pleased to be before you on behalf of a new client and somebody that's new to you, GBT Realty Corporation. Bob Gage is here from GBT. They are based in Brentwood, Tennessee, so he's come a long way to see you. And they are eager to move forward with the development that Mr. Atkinson just described. Both uses do require special uses under the CUNYO RPUD. And like all developers, they're eager, to get your feedback, hopefully move forward through the process and get going with this development as quickly as possible. They are a contract purchaser. And not surprisingly, their intent to proceed is contingent on them getting all necessary approvals and permits. So what I would like to do, I think Mr. Atkinson has very appropriately described what we're looking for tonight in terms of feedback from you for, first and foremost, the proposed Firestone use, and then secondarily the QSR, the quick service restaurant. And with that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Bob.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Bob Gage. I'm with GBT Realty. We are a development firm out of Nashville, Tennessee, just south in Brentwood. We are proposing a 6,100 square foot Firestone at this location, the one just north of, I believe it's north? Yes, just north of Aldi's. Let's see, this facility we are proposing 30 parking spaces. Per your code, I believe we are required to have 20. 30 is what the retailer prefers. This is 8 bays. The bays are facing to the south, away from the residential that is north of Menards. These are a best-in-class tire store. They have 1,700 of these facilities throughout the country. Very class act, really nice-looking facilities. Very excited to be bringing them here. Just trying to get a little bit of feedback. I do understand that there are some issues regarding the exterior elevations. And this is basically just a starting point for us. We understand that we are going to have to dress this up a little bit on the north side. Have no issues with that. We'd love to get some feedback, see which way you guys are leaning on that. As far as the QSR, we do have a couple people that we're talking with. Smoothie King, Starbucks, coffee shop type of a retailer there. Unfortunately, in order to purchase the property for the Firestone, we also have to purchase the property where we are proposing the QSR. It cannot be split up. So that would be just excess property for us, so it makes sense on our side to propose something like a coffee shop in that location. We think we have plenty of room to do it. We will have to modify that detention facility a little bit, but that is, we have also taken that into consideration, and we believe we have an end road to get that done. With all that said, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I have a question. So auto care, but it's really tires.
It is tires, yes.
You're not doing oil changes or?
It is a retail tire facility. They do some ancillary type, install windshield wipers, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Very, very minor. The 95% of their business is tire sales.
Are you a franchise? Do you develop for Firestone? Or are they privately owned, or is this?
They are privately owned. We develop for them, and we actually own the property, own the building, lease it back to them.
Sure. I'm just wondering about a tire store. So, because I know Costco, they do a huge tire business, as you know.
And there is a Sam's also that's relatively close to this. I believe there's 3 tire centers, tire-related facilities within 3 miles of this location. Sam's is one of them.
Right. I know Costco is because a lot of people go to Costco.
Yes, sir.
Because of their pricing.
Yes, sir.
Trustee Schultz.
The guy up the road at Golf in Milwaukee, is he thrilled about this? He's a Firestone, but he's a full-service mechanic and everything else.
He is a licensed seller of Firestone tires.
I guess. He's got a Firestone sign out
Yes, sir.
front.
Yes, sir. And it shouldn't affect him at all.
Okay, all right.
That's all taken into account whenever Firestone does their research for the areas. So everything that's existing there is taken into account as to whether this store can survive.
From this chair, I'm fine with the Firestone. You got to talk to these 2 guys because they're up in that's where they live, and that whole development has a whole lot of history to it. So you make those 2 guys happy.
Which 2 guys?
It's really Dr. Oppenheim. I'm Dr. Oppenheim. What's your opinion? Because
this guy and that guy. Well, before he gets his share, with regard to the QSR.
Yes, sir.
I have always hoped that we would have a sit-down restaurant overlooking the pond.
Overlooking the pond.
And that was always my hope. Now, granted, we have chopped up this site so that there's pretty small parcels.
It's very different.
And I don't think that the number of parking spaces that can be generated unless we gave you all kinds of crazy exemptions to get you closer to the road. Will allow that. So with that being said, you know, it is what it is. If it's going to be
With the research that we've done regarding the setbacks and the parking and the drive-through and everything else, we figured that we can get a 2,000 square foot building in there
Yeah.
and meet all of the requirements.
Yeah, now Starbucks do they have a drive-through window there?
They do.
Yes, currently.
Okay,
Yes,
so,
it's a very tight.
It's
yeah,
a-
Starbucks type of
It's
a
a
restaurant.
difficult-
It wouldn't actually be a Starbucks, but
Right.
it'd be a Starbucks type of facility.
Caribou or
Yes,
whoever
correct. That's right.
the other players are.
Yes, sir.
You know, I don't have a problem with either of these, but again. not-
These are the guys. Is that a coffee? Oh, yeah. Dutch Brothers. I don't believe I've heard of them. Maybe we need to make some phone calls.
Trustee Oppenheim, oh, sorry. Trustee Oppenheim?
For these type of restaurants for the GSR, is this enough parking there for?
Yes, sir. Actually, it's more than what is required there. We're showing 16, and we're also showing a stacking capability of 7. The requirement is 5. The parking for that store, I believe, is 12. We're showing 17 parking spaces.
You're above it.
I think we've got enough room to get in what we are looking for if we can get the end user on board to actually move forward with this. But right now, we're just trying to see if this concept is something that would be acceptable and be able to move forward with.
If I may, Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Regarding that QSR site, there's a lot of work that needs to get done on that, and we can't really start on it until we understand who the end user is. The parking requirements per the PUD regulations that apply to this site is 1 parking space for every 3 seats. They could probably get enough parking in there. The real question is, how do we move traffic in and out of there, including the drive-through, in a safe manner where the main access drive is at a curve?
Right.
It's possible we could do it, but there's a lot of work to be done. And then Public Works Director Brown, he could speak to the complexity of reshaping that detention pond and then replatting the detention easement as well. So there's a lot of work to be done on that site. So I just want to make that clear to the board. And then again, just for the petitioner's benefit, if we could make the site work that's comfortable for the board and for staff, just generally, are we okay for that type of use? But knowing there's a lot of work to get done.
Yeah, Village Engineer Brown, did you want to?
Yeah, so you're looking for feedback, so I'll give you honest feedback and some familiarity with the location. Very good news that you have 26,500 cars annually or per day going up and down Milwaukee Avenue. One of the difficulties, and when Menards was being approved, one of the things we tried to do is get a traffic signal at the exit point onto Milwaukee Avenue. We thought it was very important. It's a strategic regional arterial, so IDOT controls that, and there's spacing, quarter-mile spacing required on traffic signals. So there will never be a traffic signal here. One of the very difficult things with a QSR is where are people coming from and where are they going? So if people are coming from the north, Libertyville, and then coming in here and they want to go back north, I'm struggling on how they would go back north. After a while, certain uses, people become familiar. Maybe they would go to the traffic signals and then north, but that is initial concern that I would share with you. And then in terms of the pond and reshaping it, the concept that I had put forward for a few years was you could redo the detention pond. My concept was more that you would be moving the detention pond northerly and then moving the west edge of the pond easterly to build a bigger site for where Firestone is proposed. So we were trying to accommodate a bigger development that might work in this location.
Actually, the idea that we were looking at was, well, you can see it on the board. We've got a line right across the northern side of that detention facility, which we're trying to just shove it back down to the south a little bit to give up enough room for that QSR. And that's the only way we can make it work from all the setbacks and restrictions on this lot.
Okay.
So that's the idea that we had initially, but there again, just have to see what the end user is, what kind of facility they're looking at. And we're anticipating 2,000 square feet, but honestly, we don't know at this point.
So, appreciate that. I'm only staff. I don't vote.
Yes, sir.
So just wanted to share that. I'm not as enamored about the QSR. I don't have concerns about the other.
Thank you.
My only concern is going to be I don't have a problem with the Firestone, but the QSR, we have a significant number of QSRs in town already.
Yes, sir. Trying to find somebody that's not here already.
Yeah, something that's unique or something that is out of the ordinance. I just personally don't think we need another
doubling up
fast food restaurant. So,
We're not looking for fast food. It's definitely going to be some type of a smoothie or coffee type facility, not
okay,
fast food.
so more like you said, like a Starbucks type place
Yes.
that is not. Okay.
Correct. Those are the people that we're talking to right now, yes.
Okay.
So we're not looking for a McDonald's or something along those lines.
Yeah, so again, it would come down to a lot, as you
Sounds
said,
like-
there's a lot of work to do, and the end user would be important, I think.
Sounds like the technical end is going to be our biggest hurdle on that. It sounds like everybody's pretty much on board. If we can come up with a decent user that we're not saturating the market with, something that's already in place.
There's an outfit, my granddaughter, and they were touting it at last year's IML, and I can't think of the name of it now.
Is it?
Call me
smoothie?
and I'll talk to my granddaughter, but it's some kind of smoothie.
Smoothie King or one of those?
No, it's something Tropical Cafe or.
There's so many of them. It's,
He'll find out for you.
Yeah, but that's the in thing.
That's the big thing now.
With the 14 to 18 crowd.
Yeah, we have a number between us, we have a number of consultants in that group. So.
Yeah.
So if you can't put the QSR in, are you still able to make
Will we still
Firestone
move
work?
forward?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We will. Yes, we don't know what we're going to do with the rest of that lot. This basically right now is one lot, and actually the detention facility is part of it. What we do on that corner, we have no clue at this point. If we can't do a coffee shop or a smoothie type, small 2,000 square foot
It might just be trees.
QSR, it may just be empty, just a grass field.
Yeah.
It may just stay like it is right now. We don't know. We would really like to put a second facility on it. Obviously, the amount of money that we're
Your
spending here.
developers, sure.
Sure, it would make a lot more sense to have two instead of one. But if we can't get it done, we can't get it done. The Firestone will move forward.
And would this be appropriate time for council to?
Certainly.
Yeah.
If the concept is acceptable to the board, just as a reminder, this is concept approval, it's not a formal
Yes,
approval in any way, and it's not a guarantee of future approval.
Understood.
This allows you to move to the next step, which is called the technical review process. Your plans will be brought up to final details. You will appear before several village departments. They'll give you comments, such as the police department, community development, the fire district will give you comments. Those comments will be incorporated. Ultimately, you'll appear before the Planning and Zoning Committee for a public hearing on the special use, as well as consideration of your plat of subdivisions, site plan, landscaping plans, and architectural elevations. Out of Planning and Zoning, a report and recommendation will be generated back to this village board for final ordinance approval. So there is some work to do.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Atkinson will take you through that process.
And just for clarity, I think the board's direction was to send Firestone only to
Right, and
technical
that-
review?
Yeah.
Is that true, is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Well,
And then-
because you said you can't do technical review anyway without an end user, so.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
with the QSR site, with all the work we need to do, if they find an end user, staff would like to really dig into that site plan and try to come up with something that we think is reasonable for the board to consider, and then come back for concept presentation for the QSR site.
That makes sense.
Sure.
Is that acceptable?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Could you do me a favor and put the elevations back up? Oh. If I could, Could I get a little bit of feedback regarding that north elevation? I know that we talked that it needed to be dressed up a little bit more. Are there any ideas? The concept that I was thinking, if you look at the top elevation, on the right side, you see those tall windows with the awnings over. I was thinking take that and put it in a couple of the bays across the back on that north side.
Just kind of mimic
Yes, sir.
what it is.
But they would be spandrel glass. They wouldn't be
Right.
true see-through
Some
windows.
kind of a full window.
Yes, a faux
Yeah, that's-
window.
Yeah.
Is that something that's a little closer to what you're after?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the parapet needs to be continuous with the brick or whatever, not some, whatever it is, material that,
The cornice on the top?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, make that 360.
got it.
I like the lights, I like the.
And the fake lights.
Okay.
I guess real lights. You could have-
Yeah, those are real lights, actually. The gooseneck.
But I'm saying on the north side, I don't know.
Couple per bay.
We'll put them over where we're putting the faux windows and awnings and, okay, I think I've got it. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I do appreciate it. It was good to meet you. Tropical smoothie.
That's it. Yeah. I know my granddaughter has to travel extensive distances to get there.
Okay, next item is Gregg's Parkway and Huntington intersection study. Director Brown?
Thank you very much. As the village board's aware, we've looked at Gregg's Parkway and Huntington intersection a number of times. More recently, in December, we contracted with Civil Tech Engineering to perform a study. So we've did a pre and post study, and we've met with LDOT, and their findings are consistent with the village's findings. Some interesting points in terms of the study. It was very difficult to compare traffic counts because of what we're dealing with currently, people working at home. So the study doesn't address a lot of the queuing part of things because the numbers just were askew because of that. What is most important and what LDOT and the village agree on is safety trumps queuing. We think it's very important based on situations that have occurred, and I thank the police department for, they did a very good job in terms of their accident reporting. In reading the accidents, it was very clear to all of us that if you read those, there's a number of accidents that people repeatedly said, I didn't see the other driver. If someone is in the right turn lane turning onto Huntington, if a pedestrian is there, someone stops. In one of the instances, waved a kid across the roadway, and no one else, those two parties didn't know there was a car in the through lane, going at high rate of speed, at the speed limit. And so that is what the study really looked at. There's discussions whether we should have a traffic signal, whether we should have a roundabout. Those would take 2 years at least to implement. Those aren't off the table. We can look at them, but what are we trying to solve here? This is a safety issue of people, of pedestrians and bicyclists crossing the road, and we also have car-on-car collisions that they're not seeing each other. If there is a box truck in the right turn lane, someone turning off of Huntington to go eastbound may not see the other car. By eliminating, and this is our recommendation, by eliminating that right turn lane, which has been set up in that condition for 6 months, it allows people to see each other, and that's really the most pressing thing we need to do at this intersection. Specifically in terms of the study, when it first was installed, there was some confusion. So there were some accidents in January. There were 2, we presented that previously in terms of accidents. Since then, we have no accident reports that have been conducted by the police department. There might have been near misses, et cetera, but to be consistent with past years on how accidents reports were generated and based on, we need to be consistent. and look at them here also by a direct comparison. So other than those two first accidents, we think that it is a safer situation for everyone. I've talked to the police chief, I've talked to village manager Mark, and all of us concur this is the way to go. So the recommendation is to direct staff to move forward with the results of the study and recommendation from LDOT and myself, and move ahead swiftly to get this permanently installed. In the budget for this year, we put $75,000. Essentially what we would do is pull the curb towards the south. We'd have a through lane still, and people could turn right from Gregg's. So we would move forward if the board concurs, and we would look to get proposals and bring it back to the board on September 1 and get this done ASAP. That's my recommendation.
Comments or questions from the board? Trustee Oppenheim?
Yeah, it seems like all along there's really been the best scenario, and hopefully this will solve all of our issues, really. And we won't need to go toward a roundabout or a stoplight. I'm curious, we had any concerns from Beaver Creek residents who live just to the right, just to the east of that intersection? Any stacking along the way, difficulty for them getting out, or?
I've received calls through the study period, people reaching out to me, but none from Beaver Creek during the whole 6-month period.
What kind of calls did you receive?
Mostly initially, I'm not allowed to turn right onto Huntington. I have to go all the way to.
People just not understanding the
not
proper.
understanding it.
Well,
Yeah.
Did you? Wasn't sure if you wanted to speak about this, if you had any.
I do. For the record, well, first of all, greetings. For the record, my name is Kevin Borgard. I live at 1871 Turtle Bay in the Gregg's Landing subdivision. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association. I will start off by saying I agree with everything Dave just said, but because there's other potential alternatives in the future, I do want to indicate what almost all the homeowners, you're never going to unanimous opinion from everybody, but we sent an email blast to, I think a little over 1,100 of the 1,305 homes in there. We got a number of emails back. A number of people showed up at several meetings where we've been talking about this for a while. Our last in-person meeting, which was in January, Julie Simpson was there, and she wanted to know our opinions on that corner. And the one thing that was overwhelming, there was almost no one who disagreed, was that we never want a traffic light or traffic signal there because we don't want it to look, more commercial. Stop signs weren't, a three-way stop was not permitted. Roundabouts, or if you do a safe one like the one in Riverwoods, it's too big. You do one like in Gurnee, it's unsafe. This appears to be the best alternative. It's something that's simple and easy to do. And so I think the HOA and the people in there are fine with it.
Hopefully this will work well enough and we'll be done with it and it'll be safe.
So are you looking for a motion here?
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, we're looking for direction from the board, concurrence with the study, and directing staff to move forward with obtaining proposals to move forward with a permanent installation of no right turn.
Do you need a motion to that effect or just board consensus?
Board consensus.
Yeah, go ahead and bring it back to us for,
Yeah.
yeah,
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
okay.
Okey-dokey.
Seeing nothing else on the agenda, correct? I will entertain a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole.
So made. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned.